Hello everyone, it's 1 p.m. Central Time now, so I would like to go ahead and begin this webinar. My name is Hideyuki Terashima, and I am a geologist at the Illinois State Water Survey. The Water Survey is a division of the Prairie Research Institute located at the University of Illinois. Now I know the GoToWebinar tool says the name is Steve Wilson. He is my supervisor, and I'll be using his account on GoToWebinar to be giving this presentation. Today, I'll be talking about wateroperator.org, which is a website we developed to serve as a clearinghouse for publicly available resources for water and wastewater operators. I will also be providing an overview of the revised total coliform rule, RTCR, while featuring resources that are publicly available to help water systems comply with the rule. Before we dive right in, I would like to go over some housekeeping for this webinar. This webinar will last an hour and a half and will be recorded. The recording to the webinar will be uploaded to our wateroperator.org YouTube channel upon completion of this webinar. If you have any questions, please use the GoToWebinar interface. On the tool, you should see a question section where you can type and ask a question. We will review these questions at the end. So for this webinar, we did not seek approval to provide credits, but we will provide a certification of completion upon request after the webinar is over, so that you can submit the certification to your state office that approves trainings and to try to receive credits then. You can email us at info@wateroperator.org email address for the certificate after the webinar is over. So here is the outline of the webinar. I will begin with a brief introduction of what wateroperator.org is. Then I'll talk about the revised total coliform rule, resources which are publicly available to help water systems comply with the rule, how to use the wateroperator.org website to find resources like these, as well as other resources, and then review the questions that we have received at the end. So what is wateroperator.org? It is a free website which we developed here at the University of Illinois with collaboration between the U of I and the Rural Community Assisted Partnership, RCAP, with funding from the US EPA. It is a clearinghouse of publicly available resources to help small water and wastewater system operators. So the two notable features on our website is our nationwide calendar and our resource library. And I'll be showing both of these towards the end of the webinar when we're searching for other RTCR related resources. So currently we have a database of over 800 organizations nationwide. These can be state agencies, national organizations like Rural Water Association, and even some vendors that provide training or resources to operators. And so for each of these organizations, we have staff that visit each of their website and collect information on events like training events, webinars, conferences, pretty much any event which offers continuing education credits for operators, and list that on our calendar. So this calendar is meant to help operators save time from having to search through numerous organizations' website and find all the relevant events on our calendar. We currently have been running this program for over 8 years, I believe, but we enter over 10,000 events to this calendar annually. The second feature is our resource library. Similar to our calendar, our staff visits and collect relevant and useful publicly available resources such as fact sheets, reports, manuals, presentations from over 800 of these organizations, and list them on our library so that operators can save time having to search through Google search results, which may not always provide what they're looking for. Currently, we have over 15,000 documents in our library, and we always make sure to link the resource to the host organization's website so all the credits are given to them. So this webinar series is supposed to highlight some of these resources which we have added to our library in the past and help attendees learn about new resources which they might not have known about, and how they can search for more resources using our website. So today's topic will be on the RTCR. And before we begin, I do have two caveats that I would like to mention. We will be sharing resources from the US EPA in individual states. Some states may have more stringent requirements than the federal regulation. So these resources will be shared as examples that are helpful to better understand the requirements, and examples for state programs who may be interested in improving their own materials to make them more effective. We are also not a regulatory experts. We can help you find resources that you didn't know existed and connect you with individuals who can help you. But questions about specific regulatory requirements are best addressed to your primacy agency. If you don't know who to contact, if you have any specific questions that are very technical, that's something we can help you with to connect you to the right person. All right, let's begin. So what is the revised total coliform rule? It is a drinking water regulation which requires public water systems to monitor for total coliforms and E. coli in their water system. The presence of total coliforms and E. coli in the water system suggests that there is a failure somewhere in the distribution system or the water system, could be the source, which can mean that there is a pathway for these pathogens or other contaminants to enter the water system and potentially be a threat to public health. So this rule is designed to improve the protection of public health by using the presence of these indicator organisms as a trigger to assess and correct a failure in the system and to notify the state and public about the contamination. This rule is a revision of the 1989 Total Coliform Rule, TCR, and all water systems have been required to comply with the RTCR since April of 2016. And if you want to learn more about the rule, the US EPA has these quick reference guides for individual drinking water rules, where it covers requirements and details and how to comply with the rule, such as monitoring requirements, which have changed since the TCR. On the current slide, you'll see the fact sheet itself. On the left, you have the revised total coliform rule, and on the right, you have the TCR. I included both of these because there are still some information on the TCR that is still applicable to the RTCR. The link on the bottom will take you to EPA's RTCR page, where they have a bunch of resources related to the rule, which you can use to learn more about. So let's go into more details of what changed between the RTCR and the TCR. Originally, the TCR had a MCL for total coliform, fecal coliforms, and E. coli. And depending on the occurrence of those bacteria, there was a total coliform MCL violation. The RTCR now has removed the MCL for total coliforms and fecal coliforms and set a MCL for E. coli only. I'll get into the reason for this in the next slide when we go over more of the other resources that I compiled. The TCR also requires water systems to report the occurrence of total coliform MCL violations to the public in the states. However, the RTCR now requires corrective action depending on the number of occurrence of these bacteria. The RTCR requires water systems to complete a level 1 or 2 assessment, which is meant to identify sanitary defects in the water system and to fix them. The RTCR also requires water systems to complete a new or updated sample siting plan, which reflects the system more accurately. And the RTCR also updated the monitoring requirements by updating number of monthly samples required and providing more flexibility to the location of repeat samples. Now, some of these requirements, again, as I mentioned before, can differ from state to state. They might have more stringent requirements. So to get the most accurate information, it is best to contact your state primacy agency or their RTCR office and get more information on the correct procedures to comply with the rule with them. Also, the RTCR now requires seasonal systems to complete a startup procedure and complete required sampling before seasonal operation. Public notification instructions have also been updated along with the rest of the changes. Now I'll expand upon each component of the RTCR and discuss resources available to help operators better understand and comply with the rule. So first, let's understand what coliform is. Coliform bacteria is a group of organisms which is commonly found in the environment and usually are harmless to humans. Thus, if water samples test positive for total coliform, it's an indicator that there is a breach within the water system to the environment, which is allowing total coliforms to enter. Now, there is also a subgroup of total coliforms called fecal coliforms. These are usually found in the intestines of humans and animals. And within that subgroup is E. coli. Most strains of E. coli are harmless, but some can cause serious illness to humans when ingested. So if E. coli is found in the water system, there's a strong likelihood that human or animal waste is getting into the water system, and public water system will need to send out a boil order notice as well as complete a level 2 assessment to find where the potential breach is and where the contaminants are entering from and to fix those problems. So if you would like more information on what total coliforms are, Washington State Department of Health and New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services has these fact sheet, which goes into detail more on what coliforms are, and you can find the screenshots of these documents on the side. These documents really helped me understand why the RTCR switched to an E. coli MCL rather than a total coliform MCL, and the importance to conduct corrective action when these bacteria are designed. When I first started doing this presentation, I wasn't 100% aware of exactly what the rule was intended for. And again, these are, I believe, 2-page fact sheets. They are concise, provides quick information that I need, and it's helpful for new operators that are starting to learn about what total coliform and what coliform bacteria is. Now, the next few slides will cover resources which will help system understand their monitoring requirements under the RTCR. So each water system has a minimum number of sample which they are required to collect routinely. The number of samples collected will depend on the size of your population the water system serves, as well as the water system source. For example, if a system serves less than 1,000, only one sample is required monthly. A system serving 1,000 to 2,500 will be required to collect 2 samples. The numbers of samples collected increases as the population served increases. If you are a non-community system with a groundwater source serving less than 1,000, you might be on a quarterly schedule for routine monitoring. Ohio EPA has this handy one-sheet fact sheet which has a table to help systems determine what their routine monitoring requirements are. And if you look at the screenshot of the table, which is on the left, you'll see the number of population served to the type of systems, which then recommends which will tell you the number of samples required per month. And at the very top, those are the non-community system, which may have a different monitoring schedule. So it's best to check with your state agency as well as tables like this to ensure that you're on the right monitoring schedule. Now, what happens if a routine sample tests positive for total coliform? Water systems will be required to collect 3 repeat samples for each total coliform positive routine sample within 24 hours. The locations of the repeat samples are located on your sample siting plan, and one from the original total one sample must be collected from the original total coliform positive location, one within 5 connections downstream, and one within 5 connection upstream. Ohio EPA also has a fact sheet. I believe this one is for seasonal non-community public water systems, but they have I believe 3 separate fact sheet, which will tell you, or which will tell water systems what their monitoring requirements are, how many repeat samples they will be required to collect when they have a routine total coliform positive sample. And if you look at the original TCR, there are some wording where the number of samples required for non-community systems are different. Those value has been updated, so it's best to check with fact sheets like this to make sure that you're collecting the right number of routine samples. Now, I would like to mention that the minimum number of samples required per month is a minimal number. It's also many organizations recommend that you collect more than the minimal samples required to better get the better idea of the water quality of the distribution system. And I'll be talking about this more when we go over the sample siting plan. The US EPA also has a 6-page document which includes 6 placards, which provides routine and repeat sampling requirements for systems serving under 1,000. This document is intended to be used by primacy agencies to conduct training and outreach to small public water systems and to help them understand the RTCR requirements. These placards are fillable by individuals to include crucial information like system information, the laboratory that they should contact and send samples to, their state contacts, routine and repeat sampling locations, the number of samples that they are required to collect, and diagrams of where these samples should be. 3 placards are applicable to non-seasonal systems collecting routine samples monthly, quarterly, or annually. 2 of the placards are for seasonal water system collecting routine samples monthly or quarterly. And the final one is used for when a level 1 or 2 assessment is triggered. So these placards should be printed, filled, and hung on a wall or remain somewhere readable to operators so that they can react appropriately to when their sample triggers total coliform positive or E. coli positive in their water sample. Indiana Department of Environmental Management also has reference guide for repeat monitoring. These documents are again designed for systems serving less than 1,000. The document will provide concise information on the steps water systems are required to complete to comply with the RTCR, and also includes an easy-to-read table to help systems figure out what actions are required depending on the results of their routine and repeat sample results. So if you look at the screenshot on the bottom right, there's a table where if your routine sample is total coliform positive or E. coli negative, and the repeat sample is total coliform positive, there's no MCL violation. But if your routine sample is total coliform positive and your repeat sample is total coliform positive again, there you have to issue a E. coli MCL violation, and which in case you have to conduct a level 2 assessment, send a public notice, and also provides recommendations of how you should go about with complying with the. I've gotten these fact sheets from IDEM's website, but I have also seen similar versions of these documents from other states on their website. So, and I know those, depending on what state you get this document from, it'll have the contact information to their state agency, as well as maybe resources to other resources that their state has developed. And again, I've seen this template or a similar fact reference guide like this from other organizations, but with their organization title at the very top. I'm not entirely sure who created the original copy, but I just chose IDEM because they have a bunch of these reference guidance documents in a single RTCR page on their website. Another handy resource which I found were these pocket sampling guides from Vermont Department of Environmental Conservation. This is a 4-page fact sheet which includes the routine and repeat sampling requirements represented in a very compact form so that they can be easily carried around. The sampling guide also includes instructions when there is a E. coli positive routine sample, as well as concise monitoring requirements under the RTCR. So on this screenshot, you can see the 4 different pocket guides. At the very top, you have these sampling requirements for systems taking monthly routinely samples. And then on the bottom you have sampling requirements for systems taking multiple monthly samples. And if you look at the graphs, it'll tell you, if your routine sample had coliform positive, this is what you have to do within 24 hours. Take your repeat samples, and depending on the result of the repeat samples, this is what you should do on the following month. I've also noticed that several states have developed flowcharts such as these to help guide water systems on the proper procedures to routine and repeat sampling results. The flowchart to the right is from Michigan Department of Environmental, Great Lakes and Energy, or EGLE, and to the left is from the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. The flowchart from Michigan is designed for community water supplies and is pretty self-explanatory. Depending on the result of the routine sample, the flowchart will guide water systems with the proper monitoring procedures. So at the very top, you see a bubble that says, is routine sample results positive for total coliform? If it was yes, you'll go into the box on the left, and it'll ask additional questions. Did you take your it'll give you recommendations on what to do. Take your 3 repeat samples. Confirm with the lab that the tests are total coliform positive. Was the routine sample positive for E. coli? And if that was the case, you'll move on to the bubble on the bottom. Was the result of the repeat sample total coliform or E. coli positive? And then you'll move on down with the flowchart to eventually see if you have to do public notice requirements or conduct any assessments, or if you can just simply go back to routine monitoring. New Jersey has flowcharts similar to that, specifically for systems monitoring monthly and quarterly. They also have a flowchart for triggered source water to help water systems using groundwater source comply with the groundwater rule. And that's the screenshot I have showing on this website, on this slide right now. And if you go to the link on the bottom, it'll also take you to the page, the main New Jersey RTCR page, where you can find all these resources. So these were the resources related to RTCO monitoring requirements, which are found to be the most concise and useful for operators. I've also included larger guidance manuals, which will cover more of these requirements in depth later in the presentations. But again, I do like to mention that these flowcharts, for example, are mostly applicable to all states, but they do have wording for specific regulations, which could be different for each state. And I've seen other states develop flowcharts like these as well, so it's best for operators to check with their state agency to see if they have similar flowcharts. If not, they can definitely use flowcharts from other organizations as a reference guide. Now that we have established monitoring requirements, let's discuss sampling site plans. So the Coliform rule has required water systems to develop a sample siting plan, which specifies where routine and repeat samples will be taken from, identify sampling schedules, provide water system information, and ideally a map of the distribution system. This has remained the same for the RTCR, but has required systems to update their plan to comply with the revisions. Water systems are required to reevaluate factors such as change in population, new or additional water sources, infrastructure changes, changes in distribution systems, or changes in disinfection or treatment methods, and use that information to choose sampling location, which better represents the water quality of the distribution system. The reason these plans are necessary is to ensure all sampling is done correctly, even when there is personnel change. The details of the plan may vary for each state, and most states will have their own template, which can be used to fill out sample site information. So again, I will check with your state primacy agency to see if they have their own instructions, as well as a template if you need to develop or update a sample siting plan. These plans will be required to be submitted to the state for review and approval. If a state has their own template, those will usually include information on where to submit the plan, who to contact if you have any questions, and if you need assistance to contact them. I did notice while going through various states' RTCR pages that some states did not have their own sample siting plan templates, or some states actually didn't have any RTCR resources. So for those who run into this issue, US EPA also has developed a sample siting plan manual along with the template. In this case, it's for systems serving less than 1,000, but the process for entering a sample siting plan is generally the same for any system size, so they can use this as a reference to get their template started. So this 11-page manual is it's very helpful for water systems to develop a successful sample siting plan because it provides considerations when selecting a sample site. It encourages the collection of more samples than the minimum required, how to choose a proper sampling tab, and by providing examples of distribution structures to help determine where the best possible sampling locations are. As shown on the right image, the manual uses these diagrams of distribution systems structures to determine where the best sampling location will be. In this example, which is figure number 1, this is a loop distribution system. So the manual recommends having the sample site in the middle of the distribution system and away from transmission mains leading from the storage tanks. So the manual provides multiple other scenarios. For example, if they have 2 distribution systems, if they're on a campground, where they recommend would be the best location to choose their sample. The manual also recommends having alternate sampling locations to account for highest demand or vulnerability due to population change or seasonal changes. Exercises like these are very useful in developing a sample siting plan, and it's a good resource to if you're working on updating your plan or if you're building a new plan to check these resources to make sure that the sample siting plan that you're submitting is complying with the RTCR and provides a good sampling location. Another guidance document, which I found was very comprehensive, was New Jersey DEP's guidance for developing a coliform sampling plan document and the RTCR sample plan checklist. So this 14-page manual, similar to the EPA manual, breaks down each component of the sample siting plan and provides instructions as well as considerations for completing each component of the form. This manual also provides additional links to other guidance documents and helpful tables to establish sampling schedules. So this was another document that included links to other US EPA documents, which will help you develop your sample siting plan, as well as an appendix where they have tables that'll help you determine what your required, what your minimum number of samples you have to monitor for, some exercises on determining how to set your sampling schedule, and other information. So what stood out to me the most for this manual was the strategy guide, which is located in the Appendix A, where it provides steps to determine the most suitable location. Again, similar to the US EPA one. It doesn't use an exercise, but it just gives you a step-by-step instruction on how you should choose your sampling location and what you should consider to choose for choosing the best location possible. The checklist is also another document, again from New Jersey DEP. It goes over it's a 1-page checklist that can be used alongside while building your sampling site plan to make sure that you have all the information you need on your sampling plan before they will be reviewed. And I don't think I found many other organizations that had a checklist like this. So it'll definitely be useful to use a checklist like this to make sure that your sampling site plan has everything covered. But again, you should check with your state to make sure that these are the correct instructions that you should be following. Now, these guidance documents I've mentioned previously are all great, but I know that there are some people who prefer watching videos to learn about these topics. I am one of those people as well. Whenever I need to learn something, I would first go to YouTube and search for videos on, how to do something. And these are two videos which are found related to developing your sample siting plan that I found to be very useful. So the first video is from Vermont DEC, and it's a 12-minute video where a Vermont DEC staff uses an actual sample siting plan form, and it shows viewers on the video how to fill out the form step by step. So the video uses a hypothetical school as an example and shows how you can use a drawn map of the distribution system, how to choose sampling locations, as well as reasons why those locations were chosen. This is a great video for those who need assistance in filling out a sample siting plan. The link located on the slide to the upper right, will take you to Vermont DEC's RTCR page, where the video is also located. But on their website, you will find examples of other templates that Vermont DEC staff have completed, so you can get a general understanding of what your sample siting plan should look like and what information should be in there. Michigan's EGLE also has a 12-minute video where two of their staff helps guides water systems to complete a sample siting plan form. This video is geared more towards Michigan operators since they reference other Michigan resources. But again, the overall instruction as well as what to consider when choosing a sampling location is pretty much universal. So I would say that both of these videos are good resources to help you. If you need to hear someone tell you how to complete a form, these videos are great for completing a form like that. And I know other organizations also have videos, but these were the two most helpful ones that I've noticed as a non-operator who's never done something like this. This really helped me understand what exactly had to be done to complete a sample siting plan. Now for the actual sample collection process, here are two videos which demonstrates the proper procedures for collecting total coliform samples. One video is from the AWWA and the other one is from RCAP. The top is from AWWA and the bottom is from RCAP. They're both relatively short videos, 3 to 6 minutes, but they cover what kind of equipment is required during sample collection process, what kind of taps you should avoid when you're sampling, the proper procedures to collect water samples, such as keeping your cap facing down, make sure the water getting into your sample is maintaining the same temperature. All the factors like that are covered in this video. And these videos really help me understand how these samples, it pretty much goes over all the steps you need to be able to collect the sample properly. These samples have to be sent to the laboratory within 30 hours of collecting the sample, and it has to be certified. It has to be sent to a certified laboratory, which can perform the test to analyze for total coliforms and E. coli. If a water system needs to figure out or needs help finding what laboratory they should send to, if they don't already have one, they should contact their state primacy agency, since they should have a list of certified labs, as well as so they can recommend who their closest laboratory is where they can send their samples. Now, if a sample returns positive for total coliforms at the laboratory, water systems can use the flowcharts that I've mentioned earlier to determine what actions they would have to take. So the flowchart says that if a routine sample tests positive, at a minimum, 3 repeat samples will be required to be taken within 24 hours. And if the repeat samples triggers positive for total coliform or E. coli, a level 1 or 2 assessment will be triggered. So what exactly are these assessments? A level 1 assessment is a basic examination of the entire water system, which is done to identify exactly what caused the sample to be positive. So the assessment is usually performed by an employee at the water system. Specifically, a level 1 assessment is triggered when 2 or more total coliform samples were detected in the same month, or if a water system fails to take the required repeat samples after a total coliform positive routine sample. A level 2 assessment, on the other hand, is a more detailed examination of the water system. The elements which are assessed are the same as a level 1 assessment, but they are examined more in detail. This is because the cause of the level 2 trigger is either an E. coli MCEL positive violation, a second level 1 violation within 12-month period, or a systems that is on annual monitoring fails or triggers a second level 1 within 2 years. These triggers will require more attention since they can be a threat to public health since E. coli is involved, or a system that routinely triggers an total coliform positive results probably hasn't fixed what they had to fix, or probably missed something that is still causing the total coliform to enter the system. Generally, a level 2 assessment will not be conducted by the water system, but by a state primacy agency or a party approved by the primacy agency. So water systems can access these forms required to conduct an assessment, usually from their state primacy agency, and the completed forms will need to be submitted to the office for review. I noticed that, again, many states have their own version of this assessment form, and it's advised to check on their website for additional information that they would need to conduct an assessment, as well as get the forms required to conduct assessment. So now I'll be going over some resources which can be helpful for those conducting a level 1 or 2 assessment. I know most operators probably won't be conducting a level 2 assessment, but I know they are capable of getting the requirements to, certification requirements to conduct the level 2 assessment. So for New Jersey DEP, it has a 2-page fact sheet, which again goes over what causes a level 1 or 2 assessment. This is a short 2-page fact sheet, as I mentioned earlier, and includes a list of common deficiencies found during these assessments to help assessors get started with their assessment. And if you look at the screenshot, again, it shows you why a level 1 or 2 assessment is required under the RTCR, what causes a level 1 or 2 assessment, who is certified to complete a level 1 or 2 assessment. And I don't have it shown here, but on the second page, there is a page full of a page that lists common deficiencies that are found on that are usually found upon doing an assessment. Pennsylvania DEP also has a great manual designed to train individuals to perform a level 1 assessment and explains the process of having a level 2 assessment done if necessary. So this is a 137-page manual, and it helps the user to understand what sanitary defects are, how they can allow the entry of bacteria or pathogens into the system, and how water quality can be affected. So this is a more extensive manual that goes through the introduction of the RTCR, what sanitary defects are. It also goes over each component of the level 1 assessment and provides guidance on completing the form. So the manual will discuss each component or each part of the level 1 assessment form, and it'll give you guidance or tips, advices. This is what you should consider when you're completing the form. These are something that you should look out for when you're inspecting the system, so you can have a better understanding of the process to conduct the level 1 assessment and to find deficiencies in the system. The training guide also gives you a list, similar to the New Jersey DEP's fact sheet. It gives you a list of common deficiencies usually found within systems needing level 1 or 2 assessments, and it'll give you all the forms and the required information to comply with the public notification requirements and to develop corrective actions to fix or to create plans to fix those deficiencies. EPA also has a guidance manual for those completing a level 1 or 2 assessment. This is a 164-page manual titled the Revised Total Coliform Rule Assessment and Corrective Actions Guidance Manual for Public Water Systems. and it's a comprehensive guide that goes over, again, how to complete a level 1 or 2 assessment, what assessors should look out for while inspecting water systems. It also provides a large table listing common deficiencies as well as corrective actions to fix those deficiencies, and provides examples of completed assessments to help assessors get the idea of what the assessment requires. Now, for those that prefer learning through videos, Pennsylvania DEP has a great 6-part video series for transient non-community water systems, which doesn't have a certified operator. So this tutorial videos will go through each question on the level 1 assessment form. It'll provide the instructions to help you answer those questions properly. And I believe most of these videos, again, were 6 to 7 minutes long. So and there are at least 6 parts, so it doesn't take that long to view these videos and to understand what exactly is required to complete a level 1 assessment. Vermont DEC also has a great video where their staff walks viewers through the process of completing an assessment. And this video actually shows footage from the field to provide assessors what they should look out for, such as faulty well caps, conditions of the chemical feed pumps, or leaks in storage tanks. And since I'm not an operator and I've never been out in the field, this video was very helpful to understand what exactly I should be looking out for out in the field. Now for a level 2 assessment, similar to the level 1 assessment, Pennsylvania DEP also has a 90-page assessment training manual, which is designed to prepare individuals to perform a level 2 assessment. I just wanted to include this since PADEP had this resource, and again, maybe some operators may be interested in being able to conduct a level 2 assessment, or states are looking for manuals to help those that are trying to become certified to conduct level 2 assessments. So this manual will cover each question asked on the level 2 assessment form, and for each question, instructions and tips are provided to be able to answer them properly. The manual itself will include the template assessment form as well as a checklist, so the readers can understand what exactly they're looking for. And if you look at the screenshot on the right, these are the individual questions that are asked in the assessment form. So are appropriate backflow prevention devices installed, maintained, and tested on all cross connections? So it'll give you tips, determine if there are any bypasses around the treatment. There cannot be any bypasses around the treatment if the valves are closed. So for each question, it'll guide you through exactly what you have to answer for, what you should be looking out for, and the proper responses the questions are looking out for. Now let's go over the public notification requirements under the RTCR. So there are 3 tiers of violations which require the water systems to notify their customers. Tier 1 violation, which requires immediate notice, usually within 24 hours. And this is triggered from an E. coli positive MCL violation. Tier 2 violation, which require notice within 30 days. And it's usually triggered when a system fails to conduct a level 1 or 2 assessment or fails to correct sanitary defects within 30 days. And tier 3 violations, which is more lenient, requires an annual notice. And these would be monitoring or reporting violations. And again, I would check with your state to make sure these are the appropriate public notification requirements. I got this information from US EPA's 38-page manual where they list instructions for issuing public notices. This manual itself includes templates which can be used for each individual notice. Public notification documents are also other documents which many state agencies have created templates of their own, for example, boil odor notices. If there's an E. coli MCL violation. So operators are recommended to visit their state primacy agency's website and see if they have a state-specific template. But if they don't, definitely they can use EPA's list of templates to send to the public. Now, another revision from the revised total coliform rule is the special requirements, which added requirements for seasonal systems. So under the RTCR, seasonal systems are required to complete a state-certified seasonal startup procedure, which includes flushing the pipes, inspections and repair, system disinfection, collection of samples before the season starts, as well as routine monitoring requirements post-startup. Startup certification forms will be needed to be completed and submitted to the state. Seasonal systems will also be required to update and submit a sample siting plan. So again, these are documents that you'll probably, individual states will have their own versions of, but I've listed here Ohio EPA's because they had several resources to help seasonal systems comply with the RTCR. So they have this fact sheet providing information to help identify what kind of a seasonal system they are. So whether they are a depressurized system, a partially depressurized system, or a fully pressurized system. This is important because that determines, or that can change the routine monthly schedule of their samples that are required. And again, that could differ from state to state. They also have the fact sheet also lists the monitoring requirements for each individual systems of those. Ohio EPA also has a checklist to help seasonal systems make sure that they fulfill seasonal startup requirements, as well as provide recommendations on what to inspect for. Iowa DNR has a 4-minute video where their staff walks viewers through the seasonal startup checklist, as well as if they have to conduct a level 1 assessment, what they should do. The video will walk through each section of the startup checklist and provides tips and factors to look out for, which could have caused problems to the system while it was not operating. It'll provide examples of pictures that their staff have taken out into the field to show these are some common problems that seasonal systems can face. Ohio EPA also has a 22-minute video where their staff provides instructions for completing a checklist, as well as completing the certification form and proper startup procedures. The video will also provide monitoring requirements post-startup and until their shutdown date. Now, those were resources that focused on individual components of the RTCR, but I also wanted to highlight US EPA's 98-page guidance manual for small systems. I've seen this document highlighted or located on majority of states' website as an additional resource. This manual is geared towards small systems serving less than 1,000, and the manual itself will go through the RTCR in detail and what small systems are required to do to comply with the rule. The manual will provide information on monitoring requirements, how to find sanitary defects through assessments, examples of corrective actions, reporting and public notification requirements as well. The manual will also include a compliance checklist, which provides what actions to take depending on what violation the system has triggered. So on the screenshot, you can see there's another flowchart here of how to take your routine samples, what to do if your routine sample tests positive for total coliform positive or E. coli positive. And on the screenshot to the right, you'll see a page which goes over what kind of type, what the level 1 information on the level 1 and 2 assessments, as well as pictures of common deficiencies found within the system. So this is an overall great guide to read for those if you want to learn more about the RTCR and get accurate information on what exactly you have to do. This manual, I read this manual several times to make sure that I have the right information on this presentation. It definitely helped me find more information on individual components of the RTCR. So here are some additional resources that I'll be going over in the next few slides that I also wanted to include in this webinar. This is a presentation or training module from Indiana DEM. They have 6 online presentations which are designed to help systems learn more about the RTCR requirements. Each presentation is accompanied by audio, and every presentation is broken up into small segments, so it's easy to navigate to certain topics. Each presentation is around 10 minutes long, and it's made so it's simple to understand. And the presentation topics include general RTCR requirements, requirements for seasonal systems, information on level 1 and 2 assessments, violations and public notice requirements, and they have a presentation titled changes between the TCR and the RTCR, or the difference between the two rules, and that definitely helped me understand more of what each rule requirements, why the individual components of each of the rule were changed to increase public health requirements. So if you look at the screenshot, that's what their presentation looks like. On the right side, you'll see the outline of each section the PowerPoint covers. So in this case, there are slides on RTCR, the main definition of the RTCR, what you need for a sampling site plan. Each of these are around a minute long at most. So if you want to go specific, if you want to learn specifically about monitoring requirements, you can go ahead and click on the monitoring section, and it'll jump right into the presentation of that section. And as I mentioned before, there are audio accompanied with this presentation, so it helps you better understand what they're trying to express to you. Another resource is from Vermont DEC's 110 slide presentation, which they have used during their workshop to explain RTCR requirements. This presentation provides a more comprehensive background and overview of the RTCR. This presentation provides all the pertinent information, such as requirements to comply with RTCR. These include when and how a site assessment is conducted, monitoring requirements for individual system, how to develop a sample setting plan, instruction for seasonal systems, public notice requirements and reporting requirements. This presentation was definitely, they break it apart again into different sections as showing the outline picture, but it's easy to navigate. Each section is very concise. It's 110 slides, but all the information that is given to them is easy to understand. If you're an operator that needs to learn more about the RTCR, I would recommend checking this presentation out, as I did learn a lot from reading this presentation. And finally, for those that still have some questions that they want to learn about, here are some documents which provides a list of frequently asked questions from various state agencies. New Jersey DEP has a 6-page frequently asked questions document, which asks for more general questions like what happens if your routine sample returns Coliform positive, how is a level 1 assessment triggered, what are the different types of violations. This FAQ is great for new operators who are beginning to learn about the RTCR and have questions related to the RTCR. Illinois EPA also has a comprehensive 21-page document listing a variety of questions covering monitoring requirements, sample collection procedures, how to interpret laboratory results, what happens if, what you can do to check if the sample results are invalidated, and much more. This document is probably more suitable for current operators who need a refresher on some of the topics and have more specific questions that they might have. And finally, Ohio EPA also has a shorter frequently asked questions page on their website for their RTCR, but each answer is answered concisely, and they refer you to more of their resource documents, which have been very informative. So if you, for Ohio EPA, the link will take you to their RTCR page, and they have 4 different tabs. One tab is for seasonal systems, one tab is for small non-community systems, one is for all public water systems, and each tab will have their own frequently asked questions, where each question will be catered to those specific systems. I also did want to mention ASWA's RTCR page for states. This web page helps states to share their RTCR resources and materials with other states to help them implement their own RTCR materials or update their current materials. So users who visit their website, they will be required to contact ASWA to receive a login information to access. but this is a great platform for states to share their forms, like sampling site templates, level 1 assessment forms, their policy documents, maybe their fact sheets on procedures, and other documentation to share their knowledge. And other states who may not have their own RTCR documents or is trying to learn what other states are doing to develop their own, this is a great platform for them to register and gain access to see what other states are doing. This web page, I don't have a screenshot of how it looks like when it logged in, but I did contact ASWA and they gave us what kind of information that you can find on the web page as soon as you log in. You'll find policies for seasonal systems, guidance for developing and reviewing sampling plans, and as well also has a survey related to RTCR and related topics to help operators or to help states understand what exactly is crucial to developing a good or great documents for to help to provide to operators so they can comply with the RTCR. So at this point, I would like to switch to our water operator webpage so I can show you how you can find these documents. So let's go here. So again, our URL is wateroperator.org. And once you get to our webpage, this is our main page. It's fairly simply designed. If you look at the middle here, you'll have search the calendar, browse the resources, and read the blog. So I'm gonna mention the calendar first since we can do that really quickly. So if you click on search the calendar, it'll send you to our calendar page. And at the very top, if you're interested, we'll have other webinars that we are doing from wateroperator.org, and you can find the information at the very top here. But once you get to the calendar page, this is what you see. It's a very basic calendar view. And at the very top here, you'll have your search categories that you can use to search for specific events. So the 4 categories we have are category, which would be what the topic of the event is. The type is what kind of types of events are you looking for? Would this be a conference? Would this be a regular training session? Could it be a webinar? The state would be the state that the event takes place in, and the sponsor will be the organization that will be hosting the event. So whoever is using our calendar is most likely going to be an operator who are going to be searching by state. So let's say you're an operator in Illinois, you'll choose the state, which will populate all the list of the states here. If you jump to Illinois, here it'll populate all the events. Currently, these were all the events that we've entered for March. I know because of the recent COVID-19 incident, a lot of events that are being canceled in place, and some conferences are being canceled, but some events are moving towards the webinar format. So if you've been using our calendar before, it's definitely good to check what events have changed to a webinar platform. So maybe if you couldn't access some events in the past because they were far away, you might be able to find some events that you can take now. So if you go to April, here we have some of the events that we have listed on for now. Now, if you want to search for a specific topic, you can go to category, and we have a list of a bunch of categories that you can search by. For example, asset management, backflow, drinking water standard, lead and copper, safety. But we also have a category for total coliform. And for April, we currently have these events that were designed to provide trainings on total coliform. So let's see if we see anything interesting. So here we go. We have Missouri DNR, a bacteriological sampling and revised total coliform rule. So if you click on, if this event sounds interesting, and you know that on Wednesday or April 22nd, you don't have anything going on, and you can take, you can use that day to take this class to get some certification. You can click on the event, and it'll populate this new window. It'll give you the title, start date, where it's located, city, location, the link to their website, which shows you the, which will take you to their registration page, more information on their page. So it'll give you usually the agenda of their program and other information. We'll give you the information on the details of what exactly the event is about. And if you go to the bottom, you'll find contact information as well as cost. So if you click on their registration page, it looks like the URL was entered wrong at the very end, so it's not down. But if you go to their more information, it'll take you to their page. And here we go, training schedule of upcoming class trainings. If you click on this, it'll download all the forms that you will need. Oh, it'll download the form which will list all the trainings available by Missouri DNR. So this is how the calendar works. Again, I believe most operators are just going to be searching by state, but I do want to mention that there is an option to search by the total coliform category. Now, if we go to the resource library, which you can access from the front page, browse the resource. If you go to the resource library tab at the top, you can click on document search, and it'll take you right to the library. Now, this is where our search function shines even brighter, because if you're searching for a document, you want to refine your search as much as possible. As I mentioned before, currently we have over 15,000 documents in our library, and you definitely need to narrow that down to find all the relevant information you need. So again, for the search criteria, we have 4 search criteria. The category, which would be, again, what kind of topics you're looking for. What type of document are you looking for? You're looking for fact sheets, forms, manuals, or you're looking for videos. The state would be, if it's a state-specific document, you can search for those. So, for example, a lot of forms or templates that are specific to those states, you might be able to search for that using the state tag. And the host, again, will be the organization that hosts that document. So, for example, if we want to search for the US EPA's manual, RTCR manual for small systems, go to host, go down to US EPA, and if you click retrieve documents, currently we have over 1,700 documents from US EPA, and that is definitely daunting to have to search through. So let's refine the search function more. If we go to category, and if we go to total coliform, that'll narrow us down to 40 search results, which would still be around 400 search results, but you can search, 40 search results total, and which you can sift through each page by clicking on previous page or next page. And for each individual resource, let's do the very top one, for example. So this is the RTCR page. It's actually a web page, but if we click on this, it'll take you to the EPA page for RTCR. And from here, this is where you can download the manual. And I believe we included the web page for this is because the manual itself can be downloaded into different components or different parts. So you don't have to download the whole document. But if you're interested in the whole document, if you click on download full document, you'll get to the actual document itself. So if you look at here, we have a description of what exactly this document is about. It's a web page which contains the RTCR small system or RTC guide for small systems. It has individual parts of the guide. Individual parts of the guide can be found as this page, and it contains all the relevant information of what those individual parts are. And we also have a source page, which is the repository page for where the original document is located, as well as we'll link to the host organization to make sure that all the credits are given to them. So if we do another search function you can do is by type. So let's clear all of this, and let's say we want to learn more about total coliform, but we want to search for let's go manuals and see what we get. So we currently have 51 search results related to manuals. So if we search through these, we have best procedures for triggered source water sampling by Mississippi State Department of Health. Oregon Health Authority also has it's a basics for small systems manual. It's similar to the small systems manual from EPA, but this is a more comprehensive document designed for small system to operate, and it has a section on total coliform. So if you're from Oregon, you might want to click on this document to see what the RTCR requirements are listed on this page or on this manual. And if we keep going down, you'll find EPA Region 8, which also is another organization that found a lot of useful documents related to RTCR. And here is their sample siting plan. This one, it looks like it downloads the Word document form, but if we open this, here are the instructions. I believe I considered adding this to the presentation as well because of the information that it provides, but decided not to because I've listed enough already. But this is another manual which goes through the general requirements, monitoring requirements, repeat monitoring requirements. For groundwater source sampling, this is what you're supposed to do. If you're doing chlorine residual modules, this is what you're supposed to do. Here's another table that includes how many routine samples are required under the RTCR and examples of how your site plan should look like. Here's an example of their distribution system, which looks like they just use a Google Map image, which is of course certainly sufficient enough as long as they include all the information for addresses, location. They can use this as their map. It looks like here's a schedule that they have devised for this hypothetical system of when they should collect samples. And you'll find various other information. Here's a table that you can use yourself to develop a sample site plan schedule. And you can find all this information on documents, on manuals like these. So if you're interested, you can certainly search through our manuals and handbooks and search for other related documents. Another, I would like to also discuss the keyword filter option. So I already here, I mentioned that I showed previously the flowcharts that kind of guide you through what happens if your sample tests positive for E. coli positive. So if you know that you're looking for flowcharts, but you don't remember what organizations developed those flowcharts, go ahead and choose the total coliform category, search for flowchart, and it'll populate the search results for those search results. So one of them I mentioned earlier was Michigan Eagle, and if you click on their link, it'll send you to their actual document of the flowchart itself. So there we currently have over 15,000 documents in our database. We continue to strive to make sure the documents are updated and that we have the most recent documents in our database. So if you need to find, if you have an operator that's looking for resources like, for example, for Coliform, our library is definitely helpful for finding the most up-to-date resources such as this. Now, our website also has several other features. Again, I mentioned before, we also have a blog page where we have staff that creates blogs posts for most recent topics. And it looks like our most recent blog post is about COVID-19. Water operator, these are some recommendations that we have found. This is a post on the recommendation for agencies to postpone operator certification renewals. This was a hot topic that we've been hearing for a while, where since operators don't have the means to take certification because they can't, or some certification events are canceled, some are being postponed. And a lot of operators are having a hard time getting their continuing education credits they need. So we've been discussing with a lot of means to help states understand that this is an issue and that they should consider extending their certification period and whatnot. Here are all the categories of the blog posts that we have entered in the past. A lot of our blog posts also highlight some of the documents that we have in our database. So if you're interested in learning more about certain specific topics, you can definitely search our blog post for more condensed search results, which would highlight some of the resources in our library. We also have a newsletter that we create. We have several newsletters that we develop for water operators and water and wastewater operators, which we send out twice a month. We also have a technology newsletter that we send out monthly. Our water operator newsletter, again, we highlight some recent events that has been going on. We'll highlight upcoming events that are helpful, such as free webinars that operators that can easily take. We also include highlight some resources depending on the topic of the issue. And if you click on this, these are all of our past newsletters, and it'll go through our, here are some the recent events. Here are some resources, tools for small systems, some resources that are in our library. Here's a webinar, information on webinars or upcoming events, as well as recent events that have been happening in the past or the past month. Similar for our technology newsletter, we highlight more recent technology related to water and wastewater treatment, and we include information like, again, events, some recent events, recent publications, where we highlight some new research paper that have come out in the past, and industry news that, for example, if a new agency has developed a new treatment technology, you can find all the information here. We also have an issue for a tribal newsletter for tribal systems, where we highlight resources as well as events that are more applicable for tribal systems. And if you're interested in signing up for our newsletter, you can go to our newsletter tab on our website and register at the top here. And so that's basically how you use our website. And again, if you access our website and you have trouble finding resources that may not be in our library, you can always contact us down here at info@wateropera.org, and we'll try to help, or you can call us at this number as well, and we'll try to help you find the resource that you are looking for. Let's go back to our presentation. Now we'll go over some of the questions that have been submitted to us. And now here are 2 questions that were actually submitted to us prior to this webinar when people registered. So the first question we got was, should we submit a new RTCR sampling plan every year? For this, it should be best to contact your state or regional office in charge of overseeing RTCR compliance to see what they recommend water systems should do. It's recommended that sample siting plans should be reviewed annually and be up to date for sanitary surveys. However, any revisions made, such as new sampling locations, should be reported to the state. So as far as I'm aware, there is no requirement that systems need to submit a new plan every year. Another question we received was, is there a minimum number of sampling locations to identify on the sample siting plan? The minimum number of sampling locations should be dependent on the population the water system serves and the number of location required to sufficiently represent the water quality of the distribution system. So for example, if you're a system serving less than 1,000, you're required to have 1 routine sample per month, and that sample can be taken anywhere, taken from the same location every month, depending on how simple their distribution system design is. So if this was the case, you would require to have a sample location from the original location where you take your routine sampling. And for your repeat sampling, you'll have to have 3 locations. One will be the original location, one which will be 5 connections upstream, another 5 connections downstream. So that'll be 3 sampling locations total. But again, for example, New Jersey DEP, on their sampling site plan recommendation, they do recommend you have, I think they said double, for every location that they have, for every required sample they take, they should have they should have additional monitoring locations. So if you're required to take 1 routine samples, you should probably have 2 sample sites that you can take samples from. But again, this would be something that you should contact with your state to get more information of. And again, it'll depend on how your distribution system looks like. So there is no minimum number of sampling locations, but it'll all depend on what your distribution system looks like, as well as how many samples that you are required to routinely take. Right, so let's see if we have any questions submitted to us before.
Yuki, there are no additional questions at this time.
Okay. Well, if that was the case, uh, again, thank you for your time for this webinar. If you have any additional questions, feel free to contact me at terashi1@illinois.edu or my supervisor Steve Wilson at sdwilson@illinois.edu. And again, if you want your certification or if you end up having problems searching for any results, please check out wateroperator.org. And on the main page, if you scroll to the very bottom, you'll find the contact information to reach out to us. So thank you very much, and I hope everyone has a nice rest of the day.